150-foot walking lunge with the 75-pound dumbbells. 30 sandbag cleans at 150 pounds, and then a final 150-foot walking lunge. Froning and Panchik out first. Josh Bridges is almost carrying his body weight on his back right now.
And, you know, that's kind of what made a lot of his efforts in the past, you know, so Herculean. That, very similar in the same vein, it's like Chris Spieler and some of the smaller athletes that really kind of puts into perspective the load that they have to carry and the amount of work capacity that they have. Almost kind of a David and Goliath kind of situation. I think that's what made his performances and his celebrations that much more special.
They'll get 1 rep for every 10 feet they complete, so 15 reps here on the walking lunges, and then 30 reps, and then a final 15 reps. So if you're scoring at home, that's 60 scored repetitions here in Good Dudes event number 3. Rich Froning with just 50 feet remaining. Scott Panchik right behind him. Josh Bridges holding his own out there.
This is a lot of lunging. I mean, it's one thing to kind of read it on paper, but you see it kind of play out.
And then you got to go and pick up that 150-pound sandbag and throw it over your shoulder 30 times. We've seen Rich Froning now demo 2 events, and he's had the best time we've seen out of anybody. Now, again, you have mentioned, he programmed these. He's tested them. So a little bit of an unfair advantage. Although, look, he has trained today, so it's not like he's fresh.
Sure. I mean, technically, he's also done all the same workouts that these individual athletes have done, plus some, too.
They'll advance the bag every 10 repetitions, and then back to the walking dumbbell lunges. Josh Bridges is getting set to finish up. Or Bridges is coming off that elbow surgery that he had to have done to clear out some bone spurs and some things that he had going on in there.
You know what I would have loved right there? Bridges got a little bit of dumbbell wobble there at the end. If his judge just steps in front and just hits him with the no rep on the last step.
Rich Froning through 23 of the 60 scored reps. Scott Panchik keeping pace with him.
Look at that. Rich just carrying it up on the shoulder to that next station, letting it fall off the back, the little nuances of competing.
We saw Froning and Panchik go head-to-head in that initial open announcement of the year. And if I call it correctly, I believe it was Panchik who got the best of that race.
Mm-hmm. You know, Panchik kind of has a little ace in the hole with his proficiency on, you know, burpees and bar-facing burpees. If you remember, back in 12.1, the 7 minutes of burpees, Scott Panchik tied for the worldwide lead in that workout. Didn't get the win because of video rules at that time. I don't think he videoed it or expected to win it, but.
And anytime you see Rich Froning and Scott Panchik in an individual setting competing against each other, you got to go back to that 2014 Central East Regional. That was just incredible. One of the best 1-2 performances that we've ever seen, and it's the drama of some of the events in which they competed.
In my opinion, the finish that we got on Event 3, which was, I believe, Nasty Girls 2.0, with the hang cleans, we had a rule based around that finish. If you remember, Scott was a little bit ahead of Rich going into that hang clean, but Scott set the bar down in front, and Rich popped it over the back so he could run unabated to the finish line. The rules changed after that. They made the rule that you have to set the bar down in front of you and jump over it. That was just one of those ways that Rich, you know, kind of found an edge and managed to kind of beat Scott out at the time. And that was one of those best finishes where, I mean, it came down to basically one of those photo finishes where if we had replay system, you know, like you do in the NFL or the NBA now, that would have been one of those ones, Scott's calling for the replay.
Scott throwing the red challenge flag out on the competition floor. Froning has now 3 reps to go before he'll take off on his final lunge. And we will see the individuals do this event next. It'll be their final event of the day, and then 2 final events on Sunday. 7 total events here at the Mayhem Classic. Now Froning with his final sandbag clean, he is done, and he will hoist up those dumbbells and get to work on another 150-foot walking lunge. Josh Bridges, meanwhile, has 6 remaining. 8-minute time cap to this event. And there goes Froning. Again, 1 rep for every 10 feet.
It's funny, we talked to Rich earlier in the broadcast, and we talked about how the fact that Scott was close to him and that last workout really was kind of a nuisance because it forced him to push a little bit more. Shows you the competitive mindset that he still maintains even when, you know, the workout is just for show or, you know, just a regular part of your training routine.
You know, I think back to 2012 too, the regionals at the Central East, when Rich had a great day 1. It was 3 events, and they interviewed him afterwards. And he said, yeah, you know, that 3 events is kind of a normal day of training for me. And people's heads exploded. He said, you can't do 3 workouts in one day and train and be at the games. And now that's the norm, if not more, for some of these guys.
Oh, yeah. I mean, again, when we talk about how he was kind of the first to professionalize the sport, you know, as it played out in the competition sport, you know, he changed the training methodology for everyone. When everyone saw Rich's volume and what he was doing and how it paid off at the game, specifically in the final days of competition, when you would kind of have like Sunday Froning, when he would go on a tear and just win the final 3 workouts when everyone else was dying from the volume, that really made kind of a paradigm shift as far as how everyone approached training, whether it's from the periodization standpoint or just total load and volume. I mean, he was right at the forefront of that.
Rich is making his final trip down the floor as we have a minute to go before we hit the time cap. Now, this is the cool thing about this event. It's going to end with a sprint to the finish line. So we could see some great finishes coming up in the individual competition here in just a few minutes.
I want to see how Rich actually sprints here. Maybe he just gives a little walk.
It's the Froning trot to the finish line. So 7:22.94 for Rich Froning. So when you see Rich do that event in that amount of time, you got to think now, as the men are getting set to take the floor, we're going to see quite a few not get inside that 8-minute time cap.
Yeah, because especially you think about, at no point did him or Scott, for that matter, drop the dumbbells. They maintained a steady pace on the sandbags. There's not really a whole lot of wiggle room in terms of resting if you're going to do some things like put the dumbbells down.
So Bridges fights to the final seconds. He doesn't get inside the time cap, but